I want to show you where I'm at with Chinaco now. The exercise I've been doing when I've been riding outside is I've been figure eighting around sagebrush and wanting to get him round. He's got the stop and the back up kind of figured out, but now getting him round on a loose rein is what I'm headed for. So what he's decided now to try, which is what colts do incidentally, is he's pushing his jaw out to brace against my hand. So when I pull on the right rein of my Puckett, his jawbone is pointed out farther than his eye. So I go to pull, and what horses learn to do is they learn to turn their skull like that, and that's a brace. So you can see the jawbone from where you're sitting. Now if I wanted to make a heading horse, this would be perfectly fine, but I don't. So I have to get him so that when I'm riding him, he gives the jaw like that. That's what needs to happen. He can't be round all the way through and have that part of his skull pointed the wrong way. It doesn't work. So I have to take care of that first. All right, what it means is that I've backed up. What it means is I'm not a failure in the hackamore. It means that I'm not going to use my hackamore to bump him 500 times to explain to him that he doesn't need to brace with his jaw, and then I'll put the hackamore back on. I'm a real big believer that if you're having a hard time in a bit or whatever, go all the way back to the halter if that's what you need to do. So I'll set the halter up where the noseband's low enough to do me some good, and I'll have the perfect geometry to school this colt. Now, on that note, people ask me, we've been together long enough now, I feel like we're family, so we can start ragging on each other. And there's three things I believe in that are my heroes. One of them is God, the other one is Popeye, and the other one is Barney Fife. So God's a given. Popeye, in his song, says, I am what I am. That's me. Barney Fife says, nip it in the bud, if you ever watch that. And what it means is what I'm doing today. When you see that coming, don't act like it's going to go away on its own. He'll just get better at it. And if he really gets really good at bracing his jaw and going into pressure, then that's a common trait of a mule, as a matter of fact. I've watched him get drug across the yard many times. So anyway, there again. Now the mule people, I don't want you to get twitchy on me. I'm just saying, and I think you will agree that you've seen mules taking people across the hell's half acre because they know how to brace that jaw and bend that neck and just leave. So on that note, this is where I'm headed for. Now I got the poles here because what I found is I can use them as a visual. And I'll be walking around them on the outside, and I'll be walking around them on the inside. I know at first it's going to be harder for him to let that jaw go, so I'm going to ride on the outside. And all it does is give me a visual. Now when I get it, I'll go on the inside, and then he'll have a visual in the opposite eye. And to me that means something. So out here he's going to be able to drift farther because it'll be him getting bothered or whatever it is and me outlasting him. The final part of the lesson will be in there, because then he'll be rounder, or else he's going to hit his foot on the pole. So there you go, folks. You know how we get cards and letters. You know, I do the Dear Abby thing in the evening at my leisure. And the other day we did a video of me showing Chinaco going through the tunnel to go ahead and back up. And I guess the confusion part is somebody was curious why it took so much. Well, 20 minutes, okay. He didn't know how to be asked. You've watched me back up 100 horses, but none of them were colts. These were all 12-year-old dinks, cold jawed. So I'd get them walking backwards pretty fast. He had to literally learn to do something unnatural, which is walking backwards. Forward horse. So That's why it looked different. Because I mentioned a couple times, and my friends in Australia got me for it, but a lot of times I'll say I would never do this on a colt. Well, the 12-year-old gelding I back up in my snaffle is different than the 3-year-old colt that's never been asked to walk backwards by the human. That's the difference. Okay, I know I feel better. This is borderline humor, but what happened was I could tell when I got on his back he was feeling pretty calm. And the brace in the right jaw was almost non-existent, as of the opposite of the day before. So I went ahead and made the video anyway because it's kind of important for people to understand that he braced in the right jaw the day before that, and then that day he was just fine, and there was a little bit of brace in the left jaw. And incidentally, I've rode him since then, and he's no brace in either jaw. So who knows what'll come next, but the point of the roller coaster is what I'm trying to make, is that these horses, they get to think about this stuff, and then they pick what they want to do. And if they pick to want to get along, then you've had a wonderful day. And today I got on him and rode him, and it's, you know, when you see these videos, it isn't the same day you watch it. In other words, I've got rides, I've had probably 4 or 5 rides since this day. And today I came home borderline giddy. It took me longer to saddle him than it did to ride him because he did so well. But you won't see that jaw, and when I bump it, it's only for roundness. I'm not having to fight that jawbone sticking out. Now from where I'm sitting, it's pretty subtle, but I refuse to put one of them cameras on my head because it's like getting seasick watching them damn things. So I know you can see what's going on here, but you notice the left jaw is just fine. Now one of the things to note is this horse is forward, meaning he's got a nice long stride, and I never want to take that out of him. I don't want to pedal him. Okay, if I have to, I can slow him down, which you'll see in another video someday of a schooling walk. But the only reason I'm bringing this up is because down the road I'm going to have to use a schooling walk probably. And that means he'll cut his speed in half. But today, in this video, it worked out just fine. Now putting him on the inside, of course, now it turns into he's never side past the logs. So that's coming also. But the point is, you can see, to get him round, I'm having to earn it. And that's why I started on the outside, and it's all fine. Now, doing a reversal like I just did, if I have the log next to his foot, it helps keep him from blowing out the hindquarter. It keeps him steady. So I try to, when I can, I stop the hind foot right next to the log if I'm going to turn back a 180. And you'll find out down the road that it helps, because he knows that log's back there. They're pretty smart, and they don't like hitting the log. But anyway, this turned out to be a pretty darn nice ride, actually. And the moral of the story is I know there's some folks following this, and they're riding their horses in snaffles and or the hackamore, which is irrelevant. But the point is that you don't get discouraged, and beware that if a horse is braced on something one day, he could pick the complete opposite. It can be a right foot. It can be anything. So whenever it happens, don't take it personally. But now I need to get Chinaco, for me, on what's known as the go-to now. He's kind of figured out the stop, and he's starting to get collection in the stop. So I changed rhythm here, and I put him back in the mode of what he's learned already, and that's walking backwards. So going home, theoretically, you're not supposed to trot going home because you don't want him to learn to start dancing. Well, this horse, this day, I'm actually going the opposite direction when I leave. Then I go ahead and let him trot going home because I think it kind of makes him feel better. In other words, he gets kind of relaxed knowing he's going home. Well, what I'll do is I'll shut him down and have him walk in the last couple 100 yards. And then that way he doesn't run all the way to the house. So if you're going to correct me for letting him trot going home, that's all wonderful. But I'm just telling you, you get to pick whatever you want to do when you're doing this. And it helps if you trot towards, if you got 5 miles to go home. In my lifetime, what I've done is I might trot for 3 and then walk for 2. Or trot for 4 and walk for 1. And what it does, it teaches them to walk fast, but yet they're going into camp at a walk. So anyway, if you look at the ears and you look at the demeanor of the horse, what I just went through, I didn't try to add another chapter of teaching him anything. All I did was check out that jaw. As it turns out, he was just fine about it. So I wasn't going to put another move on him, another lesson. I was just going to make sure it was right and then leave him alone. And that is how I believe you keep from resentment, but over time, yet you're still teaching a horse something. So the hobbles being up above the knees, which I know 98% of you have already noticed, is something I'll let you guess why I do that. That'd be borderline humor for me. But personally, on a note, people are curious where I get my stuff. My boots last forever because when I get off my horse, I take them off. I don't need to hear the jingle jangle on the boardwalk because I just don't need it. Anyway, I wear out cheap shoes and keep expensive boots for a long time. I wear out the tops before I wear out the bottoms. But he's where I want him right now, mentally. In other words, he just went through a lesson, so to speak, and it was no big deal, and he doesn't think it was any big deal. So there's going to be a lot of days when you're going to do what you have to do, and there's going to be a lot of days when you do what you get to want to do, and that's nothing. And I've seen where we travel, you don't see it much, but it's kind of trivia, is that when some people, they get done riding, they hand the horse to the groom, and then they leave. And I think that they lose a big part of why we have horses. Now, I don't spend hours on them, but I'm just telling you, I think that's a part of this colt making deal, is to let a horse spend some time on the ground where you're not teaching them anything. You're just taking care of them and treating them right. And he's going to fall into sin. He's going to get braces, and that's what he's supposed to do because he is a colt. Now, a little more trivia, that's called a rub rag. It's burlap. You kids probably don't know what burlap is. They call it hessian in Australia. But my friend Sue McCoy, she told me her father or grandfather always carried it. So there you go. Thank you, Sue. Folks, take care.